The legend of Atlantis has captivated human imagination for over 2 millennia, weaving itself through the fabric of philosophy, literature, and scientific inquiry with an enduring power that few ancient tales can match. When Plato first introduced this mysterious civilization in his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias around 360 BCE, he could hardly have imagined that his philosophical allegory would spawn countless expeditions, theories, and debates that continue to this very day. The story he told was both magnificent and tragic, describing a powerful island nation that existed 9,000 years before his time. A place of advanced technology, incredible wealth, and ultimately divine punishment for its hubris and corruption. According to Plato's account, Atlantis was larger than Libya and Asia combined, situated beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. The island was said to be the heart of a mighty empire that controlled parts of Europe and Africa, populated by the descendants of Poseidon himself. The Atlanteans had created a sophisticated society with elaborate architecture, advanced engineering, and a powerful military that could challenge even the greatest nations of the ancient world. Their capital city was described as a marvel of urban planning, with concentric rings of land and water, connected by bridges and tunnels, and adorned with temples covered in precious metals. The physical description of Atlantis that Plato provided was remarkably detailed for what many scholars consider a purely fictional creation. The central island was said to be 50 stadia in diameter, surrounded by alternating rings of land and sea that extended outward for a total distance of 50 stadia. The rings were connected by bridges spanning 100 feet in width, with tunnels cut through the rings of land to allow ships to pass from the outer sea to the central harbor. The entire complex was protected by walls covered in brass, tin, and the mysterious metal orichalcum, which was said to sparkle like fire. The main temple of Poseidon at the heart of the city was described as a stadium in length, 3 plethra in width, and proportionally high, covered entirely in silver except for the pinnacles which were covered in gold. Inside stood a golden statue of the sea god, driving 6 winged horses, so tall that his head touched the ceiling of the temple. Around the statue were placed 100 Nereids riding dolphins, demonstrating the artistic sophistication of Atlantean craftsmen. The temple was surrounded by sacred groves and gardens with hot and cold springs that supplied elaborate baths for both royalty and common citizens. The tale reaches its climax with Athens, representing the ideal state that Plato envisioned in his Republic, standing alone against the Atlantean invasion. In a single day and night of catastrophic earthquakes and floods, the island of Atlantis disappeared beneath the waves, leaving behind only an unnavigable muddy sea. This dramatic conclusion served Plato's philosophical purposes perfectly, illustrating the consequences of moral decay and the triumph of virtue over material power. Yet the vivid details he provided have led many to wonder whether this story might contain kernels of historical truth. The philosophical context of Plato's Atlantis narrative cannot be overlooked when considering its historical validity. The story appears in dialogues that were primarily concerned with political theory and the nature of the ideal state. Plato used Atlantis as a foil to his vision of perfect Athens, demonstrating how even the most powerful civilization could fall when it abandoned virtue for material pursuits. The timing of the story's composition, during a period when Athens itself was experiencing political turmoil and decline, suggests that Plato may have been commenting on contemporary events as much as ancient history. However, the specificity of Plato's details has intrigued researchers for centuries. Unlike many ancient myths and legends that remain vague about geographic and chronological details, the Atlantis story includes precise measurements, specific locations, and a detailed timeline. Plato claimed that the story came to him through a chain of transmission, beginning with the Egyptian priests who told it to the Athenian statesman Solon, who then passed it down through his family to Critias, who related it to Socrates. This alleged historical pedigree has led some to argue that the story might be based on genuine historical records. The geographic quest for Atlantis has taken researchers and enthusiasts to every corner of the globe, each location offering its own compelling arguments and tantalizing evidence. The Mediterranean Sea has long been considered the most likely region for the lost civilization, primarily because of its proximity to the ancient Greek world and the numerous advanced civilizations that flourished in its waters. The volcanic island of Santorini, known in ancient times as Thera, stands as perhaps the most scientifically credible candidate for the inspiration behind Plato's tale. Santorini's dramatic history reads like a real-life version of the Atlantis story. Around 1600 BCE, during the height of the Minoan civilization, A catastrophic volcanic eruption literally blew apart the island, creating the distinctive caldera that visitors see today. The explosion was one of the most powerful in recorded human history, estimated to be several times more forceful than the famous Krakatoa eruption of 1883. The blast would have generated massive tsunamis that swept across the eastern Mediterranean, potentially reaching heights of over 100 feet as they crashed into coastal settlements. Modern volcanological research has revealed the true magnitude of the Santorini eruption and its potential impact on ancient civilizations. The explosion ejected an estimated 60 cubic kilometers of magma, creating a volcanic column that may have reached heights of 35 kilometers above sea level. The ash cloud from this eruption would have blocked sunlight across much of the eastern Mediterranean for weeks or months, causing crop failures and climate disruption that could have lasted for years. Ash layers from the Santorini eruption have been found in ice cores from Greenland and in sediment cores from across the Mediterranean, demonstrating the global reach of this catastrophic event. The timing of this disaster coincides remarkably with the mysterious collapse of the Minoan civilization on nearby Crete, one of the most advanced societies of the Bronze Age. The Minoans had developed a sophisticated culture with elaborate palaces, advanced plumbing systems, vibrant artwork, and extensive trade networks that reached across the Mediterranean and beyond. Their sudden disappearance from the historical record has puzzled archaeologists for decades, and many now believe that the Santorini eruption played a crucial role in their downfall. Archaeological excavations at Akrotiri on Santorini have revealed a remarkably preserved Bronze Age city, buried under volcanic ash much like Pompeii would be centuries later. The site has yielded stunning frescoes, multi-story buildings with indoor plumbing, and evidence of a highly organized society that traded with Egypt, Syria, and other distant lands. The level of sophistication found at Akrotiri rivals anything described in Plato's account of Atlantis, leading many researchers to suggest that this could be the historical kernel around which the philosopher built his fictional narrative. The frescoes discovered at Akrotiri provide extraordinary insights into Bronze Age life and culture. The famous ship procession fresco depicts a fleet of elaborately decorated vessels engaged in what appears to be a ceremonial voyage, complete with dolphins playing in the waves and crowds of people watching from the shore. The spring fresco shows a volcanic landscape covered in blooming lilies, while the Boxer Boys fresco depicts young athletes engaged in combat sports. These artworks demonstrate a sophisticated aesthetic sensibility and suggest a culture that valued both natural beauty and human achievement. The urban planning evident at Akrotiri also supports comparisons with Plato's description of Atlantean civilization. The city featured paved streets, sophisticated drainage systems, and multi-story buildings constructed with advanced techniques that included earthquake-resistant features. Some buildings rose to 3 or even 4 stories, with evidence suggesting they may have been even taller before the eruption. The presence of indoor plumbing, including flush toilets and hot water systems, demonstrates a level of technological sophistication that would not be seen again in Europe for over 1,000 years. The island of Crete itself has also been proposed as a potential Atlantis, with its Minoan palaces at Knossos, Phaistos, and Malea serving as possible models for Plato's description of Atlantean architecture. The Palace of Knossos, with its labyrinthine layout, colorful frescoes depicting bull-leaping ceremonies, and advanced water management systems, certainly evokes the grandeur that Plato attributed to the Atlantean capital. The Minoan civilization's apparent peaceful nature, evidenced by the lack of fortifications around their cities, might explain why they were so vulnerable to both natural disasters and foreign invasions. The complexity of Minoan palace architecture suggests a highly organized society with sophisticated administrative systems. The Palace of Knossos alone contained over 1,000 rooms, including elaborate throne rooms, religious sanctuaries, workshops, storage areas, and residential quarters. The famous Linear A script found throughout Minoan sites remains undeciphered, but its widespread use suggests a literate bureaucracy capable of managing complex economic and administrative functions. The presence of standardized weights and measures, elaborate record-keeping systems, and evidence of centralized food distribution all point to a civilization with the organizational capacity that Plato attributed to Atlantis. However, the Mediterranean theories face significant challenges when compared to Plato's specific details. The philosopher clearly stated that Atlantis lay beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which would place it in the Atlantic Ocean rather than the Mediterranean. Additionally, he described the island as being larger than Libya and Asia combined, a scale that no Mediterranean island could possibly match. These discrepancies have led many researchers to look beyond the familiar waters of the ancient world toward more distant and exotic locations. The question of Plato's geographic knowledge and the reliability of ancient geographic descriptions complicates any attempt to locate Atlantis based on his account. Ancient Greek understanding of world geography was limited, with many regions beyond the Mediterranean remaining largely unknown or misunderstood. The terms Libya and Asia, as used by Plato, referred to much smaller regions than the modern continents bearing those names. But even accounting for this difference, the scale of Atlantis as described would require a landmass of extraordinary size. The Atlantic Ocean itself, the body of water that bears the name of the lost continent, has produced numerous theories about possible Atlantean locations. The Azores, a chain of volcanic islands roughly 1,000 miles west of Portugal, have attracted considerable attention from Atlantis researchers. These islands sit atop the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, one of the most geologically active regions on Earth, where the seafloor is constantly being renewed through volcanic activity. Proponents of the Azores theory argue that these islands could be the mountaintops of a much larger landmass that once existed in the Atlantic, subsequently sunk beneath the waves due to tectonic activity. The geology of the Azores region does show evidence of significant changes over time. Bathymetric surveys have revealed extensive underwater plateaus and seamounts that could potentially be the remnants of former islands or even a larger continental mass. The Azores Plateau, in particular, shows signs of having been above sea level in the relatively recent geological past, though this would still place any submergence far earlier than Plato's timeline for Atlantis. The region's volcanic activity continues today, with new islands occasionally emerging from the sea before being eroded away by wave action. Recent geological research has revealed that the Azores region has experienced dramatic changes in sea level and volcanic activity over the past several million years. During ice ages, when global sea levels were much lower, significantly more land would have been exposed in this region. Some researchers have suggested that a large island or even a small continent might have existed here during the last ice age, only to be submerged as the ice sheets melted and sea levels rose. However, the time scale for these changes extends far beyond recorded human history, making it unlikely that any human civilization could have witnessed such dramatic geographic transformations. Marine geologist Jacques Cousteau conducted several expeditions to the Azores region in the 1970s and 80s, searching for evidence of submerged civilizations. While his teams discovered interesting geological formations and some intriguing artifacts, nothing definitively linked to an advanced ancient civilization was found. Nevertheless, the romantic appeal of searching for Atlantis in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean continues to draw researchers and treasure hunters to these remote islands. Modern expeditions using advanced underwater exploration technology continue to map the seafloor around the Azores, occasionally discovering unusual formations that fuel continued speculation about lost lands. The Canary Islands, located off the coast of Morocco, present another Atlantic possibility that has gained support from various researchers. These islands were home to the Guanche people, a mysterious civilization that possessed advanced knowledge of astronomy, agriculture, and maritime navigation, despite their apparent isolation from other advanced cultures. The Guanches built sophisticated stone structures, created elaborate mummification processes, and developed a complex social system that impressed early European explorers. Their sudden decline following European contact in the 15th century provides a historical parallel to the kind of civilizational collapse described in the Atlantis legend. What makes the Canary Islands particularly intriguing as an Atlantis candidate is their location relative to the ancient world. They lie just beyond the Pillars of Hercules, matching Plato's geographic description, and they sit on a volcanic hotspot that could explain the catastrophic destruction he described. The islands also show evidence of significant geological changes over time, with some researchers suggesting that they could be the remnants of a much larger landmass that once extended further into the Atlantic. Underwater surveys around the Canary Islands have revealed extensive submerged platforms and terraces that could potentially be the remains of former coastlines. The cultural achievements of the Guanche people add another layer of mystery to the Canary Islands theory. Their sophisticated astronomical knowledge, evidenced by stone circles and observatory structures that rival those found in Europe, suggests contact with or descent from a highly advanced civilization. Their practice of mummification, similar to that found in Egypt and other ancient cultures, raises questions about possible connections to the broader ancient world that mainstream archaeology has yet to fully explain. The Guanche language, now extinct, showed no clear relationship to any known language family, adding to the mystery of their origins. Archaeological investigations in the Canary Islands have revealed evidence of sophisticated agricultural systems, including elaborate irrigation networks and terraced farming that maximized crop production in the island's challenging volcanic environment. The Guanches also demonstrated advanced knowledge of medicine, with archaeological evidence suggesting they performed successful surgical procedures including trepanation. Their social organization was complex, with evidence of specialized crafts, trade networks between islands, and elaborate religious ceremonies that may have included human sacrifice. Moving beyond the Atlantic, some of the most exotic Atlantis theories have placed the lost civilization in locations that would have been completely unknown to Plato and his contemporaries. Antarctica, despite its current frozen state, has been proposed as a possible Atlantis location based on the theory that the continent was once located in a more temperate climate zone before shifting to its current polar position. This theory, popularized by researchers like Charles Hapgood and later Graham Hancock, suggests that periodic shifts in the Earth's crust could have moved entire continents to different climate zones within recorded human history. The Antarctica theory gained some credibility with the discovery of the Piri Reis map, a 16th-century Turkish chart that appears to show the coastline of Antarctica with remarkable accuracy, despite the continent not being officially discovered until 1820. Proponents argue that this map, which Piri Reis claimed was based on much older sources, provides evidence that ancient civilizations had knowledge of Antarctica when it was free of ice. The map shows what appears to be the coastline of Queen Maud Land in Antarctica, complete with mountains and rivers that are now buried under miles of ice. However, mainstream historians and geologists remain skeptical of both the map's accuracy and the proposed timeline for crustal displacement. Modern understanding of plate tectonics indicates that the kind of rapid crustal movements proposed by Hapgood would require forces far beyond anything observed in the geological record. The movement of Antarctica to its current position occurred over millions of years, not the thousands of years that would be necessary to support the Atlantis theory. Additionally, detailed analysis of the Piri Reis map has revealed numerous inaccuracies that suggest it was based on contemporary geographic knowledge rather than ancient sources. Recent research in Antarctica has revealed that the continent was indeed ice-free in the distant past, but this occurred millions of years before the emergence of human civilization. Fossil evidence shows that Antarctica once supported lush forests and diverse ecosystems, but the continent's gradual movement to its current polar position and the development of its ice sheet occurred over geological timescales that precede human evolution by millions of years. While these discoveries are fascinating from a geological perspective, they do not support theories about advanced human civilizations existing in Antarctica within recorded history. The Caribbean has also been suggested as a potential Atlantis location, with some researchers pointing to the advanced civilizations that once flourished in the region before European contact. The sophisticated astronomical knowledge of the Maya, the impressive engineering achievements of various Caribbean cultures, and the region's vulnerability to natural disasters all echo themes from Plato's Atlantis narrative. Underwater formations near Bimini in the Bahamas, including what some claim are artificial stone structures, have been cited as possible evidence of a submerged civilization, though most marine archaeologists attribute these formations to natural geological processes. The so-called Bimini Road, discovered in 1968, consists of rectangular limestone blocks arranged in what appears to be a linear pattern on the ocean floor. Proponents of the Atlantis theory have argued that these blocks are too regular and well-arranged to be natural formations, suggesting they are the remains of an ancient road or wall. However, geological analysis has shown that the blocks are composed of beach rock, a type of limestone that forms naturally in shallow tropical waters through well-understood chemical processes. The linear arrangement of the blocks results from natural fracturing patterns in the beach rock, not human construction. Despite the natural explanation for the Bimini Road, the Caribbean region continues to attract Atlantis researchers due to its rich archaeological heritage and evidence of sophisticated pre-Columbian civilizations. The Maya achieved remarkable advances in astronomy, mathematics, and engineering, creating elaborate cities with pyramid complexes, sophisticated water management systems, and accurate calendar systems that rival modern calculations. The sudden abandonment of many Maya cities in the 9th century CE provides a historical parallel to the kind of civilizational collapse described in the Atlantis legend. The Indian Ocean has produced its own Atlantis theories, particularly focused on the submerged continent of Lemuria, proposed by 19th century geologists to explain the distribution of lemur fossils across widely separated land masses. While the theory of Lemuria has been superseded by our modern understanding of plate tectonics, some researchers continue to search for evidence of advanced ancient civilizations in the Indian Ocean region. The discovery of sophisticated underwater structures off the coast of India, including what appear to be artificial formations near Dwarka and Mahabalipuram, has fueled speculation about lost civilizations in these waters. The underwater structures near Dwarka, associated with the legendary city described in Hindu epics, include what appear to be walls, platforms, and other architectural features constructed from large stone blocks. While the interpretation of these structures remains controversial, their discovery has encouraged systematic underwater archaeological investigation in the region. Marine archaeologists have found evidence of human habitation dating back several thousand years, including pottery, tools, and structural remains that suggest the presence of sophisticated coastal settlements that were subsequently submerged by rising sea levels. Similar underwater discoveries near Mahabalipuram have revealed submerged temple complexes and other structures that appear to be artificial constructions rather than natural formations. The famous shore temple at Mahabalipuram, built in the 7th century CE, was traditionally said to be one of 7 temples, with the others supposedly lost to the sea. Recent underwater investigations have indeed found evidence of submerged structures that could be the remains of these legendary lost temples, demonstrating that ancient accounts of submerged cities may sometimes have historical validity. Perhaps one of the most intriguing aspects of the geographic quest for Atlantis is how each proposed location reflects the cultural and scientific understanding of its time. Early theories focused on the Mediterranean because it was the center of the known world for ancient Greek civilization. As European exploration expanded into the Atlantic, theories naturally followed, placing Atlantis in newly discovered island chains. The rise of global awareness in the modern era has led to increasingly exotic proposals, from Antarctica to the Pacific Ocean to locations that would require complete revisions of our understanding of ancient history and geology. The development of advanced underwater exploration technology has opened new possibilities for Atlantis research while simultaneously debunking many earlier claims. Sophisticated sonar mapping, remotely operated vehicles, and deep-sea submersibles have allowed researchers to explore ocean floors with unprecedented detail. These tools have revealed a wealth of underwater geological formations that previous generations could only imagine. But they have also shown that many claimed artificial structures are actually natural formations created by well-understood geological processes. Side-scan sonar technology has revolutionized underwater archaeology by allowing researchers to create detailed maps of the seafloor that reveal both natural and artificial features. This technology has been used to survey potential Atlantis sites around the world, from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic to the Pacific Ocean. While these surveys have revealed numerous interesting geological formations, they have also demonstrated that the ocean floors are far more complex and varied than early researchers realized, with natural processes creating formations that can easily be mistaken for artificial structures. The search for Atlantis has also been influenced by changing theories about ancient civilizations and their capabilities. Early 20th century archaeology tended to underestimate the achievements of ancient peoples, making the idea of a lost advanced civilization more plausible by contrast. However, as we have gained a better understanding of what ancient civilizations actually accomplished, from the precision of Egyptian pyramid construction to the sophisticated mathematics of Babylonian astronomy, the need for a hypothetical super-civilization like Atlantis has diminished. Modern archaeological discoveries have revealed that ancient civilizations were far more sophisticated than previously thought, with advanced knowledge of engineering, astronomy, mathematics, and other sciences. The precision of megalithic construction at sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia, the astronomical alignments of monuments around the world, and the sophisticated water management systems of ancient civilizations all demonstrate that our ancestors possessed remarkable technical capabilities. These discoveries suggest that the achievements attributed to Atlantis may not have been unique, but rather representative of the general capabilities of advanced ancient civilizations. Modern satellite technology has revolutionized the search for lost civilizations by allowing researchers to identify potential archaeological sites from space. Infrared and radar imaging can reveal buried structures, ancient coastlines, and other features invisible to ground-based observation. Several expeditions have used satellite data to identify promising locations for Atlantis research, though none have yet produced definitive evidence of Plato's lost civilization. The use of satellite archaeology has led to numerous important discoveries of previously unknown ancient sites, demonstrating the potential of this technology for revealing hidden aspects of human history. The role of climate change in shaping ancient civilizations has become increasingly important in Atlantis research. As we better understand how sea level changes, volcanic activity, and climate shifts affected ancient peoples, some of the more dramatic aspects of Plato's story become more plausible. The end of the last ice age, around 10,000 years ago, caused massive changes in sea levels and climate patterns that could have destroyed coastal civilizations and inspired legends of great floods and lost lands. During the last ice age, global sea levels were approximately 400 feet lower than today, exposing vast areas of continental shelf that are now underwater. These exposed areas would have been prime locations for human settlement, with access to both marine and terrestrial resources. As the ice sheets melted and sea levels rose, these coastal settlements would have been gradually or suddenly submerged, forcing their inhabitants to relocate to higher ground. The trauma of such massive displacement could easily have inspired legends of lost lands and great floods that persist in the mythologies of cultures around the world. Archaeological evidence from around the world shows that sophisticated civilizations existed much earlier than previously thought, lending some credibility to theories about advanced ancient cultures. Sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, with its elaborate stone circles dating to around 9,500 BCE, demonstrate that hunter-gatherer societies were capable of monumental construction projects thousands of years before the development of agriculture in cities. These discoveries suggest that our understanding of ancient human capabilities may still be incomplete. The construction of Göbekli Tepe required sophisticated knowledge of stoneworking, engineering, and organization that challenges conventional theories about the development of human civilization. The site features massive stone pillars, some weighing over 10 tons, arranged in complex circular patterns and decorated with elaborate carvings of animals and abstract symbols. The precision of the stonework and the sophistication of the symbolic system suggest a level of cultural development that was previously thought impossible for hunter-gatherer societies. The search for Atlantis has also been shaped by the discovery of numerous submerged archaeological sites around the world. Rising sea levels at the end of the Ice Age submerged vast areas of coastal land, taking with them any civilizations that might have existed in these regions. Underwater archaeological sites off the coasts of India, Japan, the Mediterranean, and other regions have revealed sophisticated structures that were once above water, proving that advanced civilizations did indeed exist in areas now beneath the sea. One of the most significant underwater archaeological discoveries relevant to Atlantis research has been the exploration of Yonaguni Monument off the coast of Japan. This massive underwater structure, discovered in 1986, features what appear to be carved steps, terraces, and geometric patterns that some researchers interpret as evidence of an advanced ancient civilization. The structure rises from the seafloor to within 16 feet of the surface, covering an area of approximately 150 by 40 meters. Its regular geometric features, including what appear to be stairs, platforms, and right-angle corners, have led some researchers to argue that it must be artificial rather than natural. While most marine geologists believe the Yonaguni Formation is natural, created by well-known geological processes, including tectonic activity and erosion, the debate continues over whether some of the features could be artificial modifications of a natural structure. The formation consists of sandstone that naturally fractures along regular planes, creating the geometric patterns that some interpret as evidence of human construction. However, the precision of some features and their apparent functional arrangement continue to intrigue researchers and fuel ongoing investigation. The Mediterranean continues to yield important underwater archaeological discoveries that shed light on ancient civilizations and their fate. The discovery of well-preserved Bronze Age shipwrecks, submerged harbors, and even entire settlements has revolutionized our understanding of ancient maritime cultures. These finds demonstrate that the ancient Mediterranean was home to sophisticated civilizations with advanced technology, extensive trade networks, and impressive architectural achievements, all of which could have inspired later legends of lost civilizations. The Uluburun shipwreck, discovered off the coast of Turkey and dating to the 14th century BCE, provides extraordinary evidence of the complexity and extent of Bronze Age trade networks. The ship's cargo included items from across the known world, including copper from Cyprus, tin from Afghanistan, amber from the Baltic, ivory from Africa, and luxury goods from Egypt and the Levant. This single shipwreck demonstrates that Bronze Age civilizations were engaged in sophisticated international trade that connected diverse cultures across vast distances. The Black Sea has emerged as another important region for underwater archaeology, particularly following the discovery that the sea was once a much smaller freshwater lake before being flooded by rising Mediterranean waters around 7,500 years ago. This catastrophic flooding event, which may have inspired the biblical flood narrative and other deluge myths, could also have destroyed coastal civilizations and contributed to legends of lost lands. Underwater explorations in the Black Sea have revealed well-preserved ancient shorelines and archaeological sites that provide a window into pre-flood civilizations. The Black Sea flooding event, sometimes called Noah's Flood by researchers, occurred when rising Mediterranean waters breached the natural dam at the Bosphorus and poured into the lower-lying Black Sea basin. The flooding was rapid and catastrophic, with water levels rising at a rate of several inches per day and ultimately submerging an area larger than Florida. Any human settlements around the shores of the former freshwater lake would have been quickly submerged, forcing mass migrations that could have spread flood legends throughout Europe and Asia. Recent advances in marine archaeology have also revealed the extent to which ancient peoples were capable of long-distance ocean travel, challenging traditional assumptions about the isolation of ancient civilizations. Evidence of contact between widely separated cultures, from Polynesian voyages across the Pacific to possible pre-Columbian contact between the Old and New Worlds, suggests that ancient maritime technology was more advanced than previously believed. This raises the possibility that a civilization like Atlantis could have had the global reach that Plato described. The achievements of Polynesian navigators demonstrate that ancient peoples were capable of remarkable feats of ocean exploration and settlement. Using traditional sailing vessels and navigation techniques based on stars, currents, and wave patterns, Polynesian seafarers successfully colonized islands across the vast Pacific Ocean, from Easter Island in the east to Madagascar in the west. These voyages required sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, oceanography, and seamanship that rivals modern navigation capabilities. The role of natural disasters in shaping human history has become increasingly clear through archaeological and geological research. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, and climate changes have repeatedly destroyed civilizations throughout history, often leaving behind only fragmentary evidence of their existence. The Minoan civilization's apparent sudden collapse, the abandonment of sophisticated cities like Catalhoyuk in Turkey, and the mysterious disappearance of other ancient cultures all demonstrate how quickly advanced civilizations can vanish from the historical record. Modern understanding of plate tectonics and geological processes has both supported and challenged various Atlantis theories. While we now know that continents do move over geological time and that ocean basins can change dramatically, these processes typically occur over millions of years rather than the brief time span described in Plato's account. However, more rapid geological changes are possible in certain circumstances, particularly in volcanically active regions or areas prone to massive landslides and subsidence. The discovery of massive underwater landslides and their potential to generate devastating tsunamis has added new dimensions to Atlantis research. The Storegga slide off the coast of Norway, which occurred around 6,200 years ago, displaced an area of seafloor the size of Scotland and generated tsunamis that reached heights of over 60 feet along distant coastlines. Similar events in other parts of the world could have destroyed coastal civilizations and inspired legends of lands swallowed by the sea. Volcanic activity continues to be a major focus of Atlantis research, particularly in light of our growing understanding of supervolcanic eruptions and their global impacts. The Toba eruption in Indonesia around 74,000 years ago came close to causing human extinction, while more recent events like the 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora caused global climate disruption and widespread famine. Such catastrophic volcanic events could certainly have destroyed advanced civilizations and inspired stories of divine punishment and lost worlds. The search for Atlantis has also been influenced by discoveries of sophisticated ancient engineering that challenges conventional timelines of technological development. The precision of megalithic construction at sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia, the advanced water management systems of ancient Peru, and the astronomical alignments of monuments around the world all suggest that ancient peoples possessed knowledge and capabilities that mainstream archaeology is still struggling to explain. These achievements demonstrate that the technological sophistication attributed to Atlantis may not have been impossible for ancient civilizations to achieve. As we continue to explore the oceans and uncover new archaeological evidence, the geographic quest for Atlantis remains an active field of research. While no definitive evidence of Plato's specific civilization has been found, The search has contributed enormously to our understanding of ancient civilizations, geological processes, and the complex relationship between human societies and their environment. Each proposed location for Atlantis, from the familiar waters of the Mediterranean to the exotic reaches of Antarctica, reflects not only our evolving understanding of the ancient world, but also our enduring fascination with the possibility that advanced civilizations once existed beyond the boundaries of recorded history. The search for Atlantis continues to evolve as new technologies and methodologies become available to researchers. Advanced computer modeling, genetic analysis of ancient populations, and increasingly sophisticated dating techniques all contribute to our growing understanding of ancient civilizations and their capabilities. While the specific civilization described by Plato may remain elusive, the search for Atlantis continues to drive important discoveries about human history and the forces that have shaped our world throughout the millennia. Moving beyond the geographical quest for Atlantis, we must examine the scientific theories that attempt to explain how such a civilization could have existed and then vanished so completely from the historical record. The geological and catastrophic event theories surrounding Atlantis offer some of the most compelling scientific frameworks for understanding how an advanced civilization might have been destroyed so thoroughly that only legends remain. These theories draw upon our growing understanding of Earth's dynamic systems and the powerful forces that have shaped our planet throughout its history. The theory of catastrophic geological events provides perhaps the most scientifically plausible explanation for Atlantis's disappearance. Throughout Earth's history, massive geological upheavals have repeatedly reshaped continents and destroyed entire ecosystems with devastating efficiency. The concept of uniformitarianism, which suggests that geological processes occurring today have operated throughout Earth's history, indicates that catastrophic events of enormous magnitude have occurred regularly on geological timescales. Volcanic eruptions, earthquakes, tsunamis, and sudden changes in sea level have all played roles in shaping human civilization and could easily account for the destruction of an advanced society. The archaeological record provides abundant evidence of civilizations that flourished for centuries or millennia before being suddenly abandoned or destroyed by natural disasters. Consider the immense power contained within Earth's geological systems. The energy released by major earthquakes can exceed that of thousands of nuclear weapons, while volcanic eruptions can eject cubic kilometers of material into the atmosphere and fundamentally alter regional climates. The forces involved in plate tectonics move entire continents over geological time, creating mountain ranges, ocean basins, and the complex geography we see today. Against such overwhelming natural forces, even the most advanced human civilization would be vulnerable to complete destruction under the right circumstances. Volcanic activity represents one of the most devastating forces capable of obliterating entire civilizations within hours or days. The eruption of Mount Vesuvius in 79 CE demonstrated how quickly a thriving city could be buried and forgotten, with Pompeii remaining hidden for over 1,500 years beneath layers of volcanic ash and pumice. The preservation of Pompeii provides a haunting glimpse into how completely volcanic activity can entomb a civilization, freezing it in time while simultaneously destroying it. Similarly, the Minoan civilization on Crete may have been devastated by the massive volcanic eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE. This eruption was one of the largest in recorded human history, ejecting an estimated 60 cubic kilometers of material and creating tsunamis that would have devastated coastal communities throughout the eastern Mediterranean. The Thera eruption offers a particularly compelling parallel to the destruction described in Plato's account of Atlantis. The explosion was so violent that it created a caldera over 10 kilometers across, and the resulting tsunamis reached heights of up to 50 meters on nearby coastlines. The ash fallout from such an eruption would have caused crop failures, climate disruption, and societal collapse across a wide region, potentially affecting civilizations hundreds of kilometers away. Archaeological evidence from Crete shows signs of widespread destruction and abandonment around the time of the Thera eruption, suggesting that this single volcanic event may have contributed to the collapse of one of the Mediterranean's most sophisticated Bronze Age civilizations. The theory that Atlantis was destroyed by volcanic activity gains credibility when we consider the ring of fire around the Pacific Ocean and the volcanic activity along the mid-Atlantic ridge. These regions represent some of the most geologically active areas on Earth, where the movement of tectonic plates creates conditions for frequent and often catastrophic volcanic eruptions. Underwater volcanic eruptions can create temporary islands that subsequently sink back beneath the waves, leaving no trace of their existence except in the geological record. The process of island formation and destruction through volcanic activity continues today, providing observable examples of how land masses can appear and disappear on human timescales. The Azores, often proposed as a remnant of Atlantis, sit atop the mid-Atlantic ridge where volcanic activity continues to this day. These islands represent the peaks of massive underwater volcanoes, and their existence demonstrates how volcanic activity along oceanic ridges can create habitable land in the middle of vast ocean basins. The island of Surtsey, which emerged from the ocean near Iceland in 1963 and has since partially eroded away, demonstrates how volcanic islands can appear and disappear on human timescales. The birth and evolution of Surtsey provided scientists with a unique opportunity to observe the entire life cycle of a volcanic island, from its explosive emergence from the sea to its gradual colonization by plants and animals. The geological history of the Atlantic Ocean reveals numerous examples of volcanic islands that have risen and fallen over millions of years. Many seamounts scattered across the Atlantic floor represent the eroded remains of islands that once stood above sea level, potentially supporting ecosystems and even human habitation. The Hawaiian island chain provides an excellent example of how volcanic islands migrate and eventually sink as the oceanic plate moves over stationary hotspots in the mantle. The older Hawaiian islands in the northwest of the chain are gradually sinking and eroding, while new islands continue to form in the southeast. Seismic activity provides another mechanism through which Atlantis could have been destroyed with terrifying suddenness. Major earthquakes can cause massive landslides, trigger tsunamis, and fundamentally alter coastlines within minutes. The earthquake that struck Lisbon in 1755 generated tsunamis that reached heights of 15 meters in some coastal areas and was felt across Europe and North Africa. This earthquake demonstrated how seismic events can have far-reaching consequences, affecting areas thousands of kilometers from the epicenter. Such an event, occurring in prehistoric times, could easily have destroyed a coastal civilization and erased most evidence of its existence through a combination of ground shaking, landslides, fires, and flooding. The Mediterranean region, with its complex tectonic activity along the boundary between the African and Eurasian plates, has experienced numerous catastrophic earthquakes throughout recorded history. The collision between these massive continental plates creates ongoing geological stress that periodically releases in devastating seismic events. Historical records document earthquakes in this region that have destroyed entire cities, altered coastlines, and triggered social and economic collapse across wide areas. The earthquake that struck Crete in 365 CE was so powerful that it lifted the entire island by several meters and generated tsunamis that affected coastlines throughout the eastern Mediterranean. The study of paleoseismology, which examines evidence of ancient earthquakes preserved in geological formations, reveals that the Mediterranean has experienced seismic events far more powerful than any recorded in historical times. Geological evidence suggests that massive earthquakes capable of causing regional devastation occur in this area on timescales of thousands of years. Such prehistoric earthquakes could easily have destroyed advanced civilizations without leaving clear historical records, particularly if the affected societies had limited writing systems or if their records were destroyed in the same catastrophic events. Tsunami events represent perhaps the most dramatic way in which coastal civilizations can be destroyed, combining the devastating power of water with the element of surprise that makes evacuation nearly impossible. The Indian Ocean tsunami of 2004 demonstrated how quickly coastal communities can be devastated, with waves reaching heights of 30 meters in some areas and traveling up to 2 kilometers inland. The speed at which tsunamis can transform peaceful coastlines into scenes of utter destruction is almost incomprehensible to those who have not witnessed such events. Within minutes, thriving coastal communities can be reduced to debris fields, with virtually no trace remaining of the human settlements that once existed there. Historical records describe even more devastating tsunamis than the 2004 event, such as the one that struck the eastern Mediterranean following the Crete earthquake of 365 CE. This tsunami lifted ships over city walls in Alexandria and caused widespread destruction along coastlines from Italy to Palestine. Contemporary accounts describe waves so high that they flooded areas several kilometers inland, destroying everything in their path and leaving behind only scattered debris and altered coastlines. A prehistoric tsunami of similar magnitude could have obliterated a coastal civilization like Atlantis while leaving minimal archaeological evidence, particularly if the affected area was subsequently covered by sediment or remained underwater. The geological record contains evidence of numerous prehistoric tsunamis that dwarf any events recorded in historical times. Deposits of marine sediments found far inland and at significant elevations provide evidence of tsunamis that reached heights of over 100 meters in some locations. Such mega tsunamis, possibly triggered by massive underwater landslides or asteroid impacts, would have been capable of devastating entire continental coastlines and eliminating any trace of human habitation over vast areas. The Storegga slide, which occurred off the coast of Norway approximately 8,000 years ago, generated tsunamis that reached heights of 20 meters along coastlines throughout the North Atlantic, demonstrating how underwater landslides can create waves capable of crossing entire ocean basins. The concept of rapid sea level change provides another geological mechanism for Atlantis's disappearance that operates on timescales relevant to human civilization. During the last ice age, sea levels were approximately 120 meters lower than they are today, exposing vast areas of continental shelf that are now underwater. As the ice sheets melted, sea levels rose rapidly, flooding coastal plains and islands at rates that would have been catastrophic for any human settlements in affected areas. This process, known as post-glacial rebound and marine transgression, occurred at different rates in different regions, sometimes creating dramatic changes in coastlines over periods of decades or centuries rather than millennia. The process of post-glacial sea level rise was not uniform or gradual, but occurred in pulses separated by periods of relative stability. Meltwater pulse events, during which massive volumes of glacial meltwater were released into the oceans over short periods, could raise global sea levels by several meters within decades. Such rapid changes would have been devastating for coastal civilizations, forcing mass migrations and potentially leading to the complete abandonment of low-lying areas. A civilization established on coastal areas or islands during periods of lower sea level could have been completely submerged as waters rose, leaving only scattered underwater ruins as evidence of their former existence. The Black Sea Deluge hypothesis, proposed by marine geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman, suggests that the Black Sea was once a much smaller freshwater lake that was catastrophically flooded when rising Mediterranean waters breached the natural dam at the Bosphorus around 7,500 years ago. This event would have raised the Black Sea level by hundreds of feet and flooded thousands of square kilometers of previously inhabited land within a matter of months or years. Archaeological evidence from the Black Sea floor has revealed the remains of ancient shorelines and river channels, supporting the theory that vast areas now underwater were once dry land, potentially suitable for human habitation. While this flooding occurred too recently to account for Plato's Atlantis, it demonstrates how rapidly and completely coastal civilizations can be submerged by geological events. The Black Sea Deluge may have affected early agricultural societies that had developed along the shores of the former freshwater lake, forcing mass migrations and potentially contributing to the spread of farming cultures into Europe and Asia. This event provides a concrete example of how geological processes can create the conditions described in flood myths found in cultures throughout the region, including the biblical account of Noah's flood and similar stories from Mesopotamian literature. Meteorite impacts represent another category of catastrophic events that could account for Atlantis's destruction through mechanisms that extend far beyond the immediate impact zone. The Younger Dryas impact hypothesis suggests that a cosmic impact around 12,900 years ago triggered a period of rapid climate change and contributed to the extinction of megafauna in North America. While this hypothesis remains controversial among scientists, it illustrates how extraterrestrial impacts could cause widespread environmental disruption and societal collapse across continents. A large meteorite impact in the ocean could generate massive tsunamis, trigger volcanic activity, and cause global climate disruption sufficient to destroy advanced civilizations thousands of kilometers from the impact site. The Chicxulub impact that occurred 66 million years ago demonstrates the global effects that large meteorite impacts can have on Earth's environment. This impact, which contributed to the extinction of the dinosaurs, created a crater over 150 kilometers in diameter and ejected enormous quantities of debris into the atmosphere. The resulting environmental changes included global wildfires, acid rain, and a dramatic cooling period caused by dust and debris blocking sunlight. While impacts of this magnitude are extremely rare, smaller impacts occurring in populated areas could still have devastating effects on human civilizations, particularly if they occurred in oceanic areas where the resulting tsunamis could affect coastlines across entire ocean basins. The Tunguska event of 1908 provides an example of how even relatively small cosmic impacts can cause widespread destruction. This event, likely caused by the explosion of a small asteroid or comet in the atmosphere, flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest in Siberia and was detected by seismic stations around the world. If a similar event had occurred over a populated area or ocean, the consequences could have been catastrophic for human settlements. The rarity of large impact events means that they are unlikely to be recorded in historical documents, but their potential for causing widespread destruction makes them plausible candidates for explaining the sudden disappearance of ancient civilizations. The scientific study of past climate change reveals that Earth's climate system can shift rapidly between different states, sometimes within decades or even years, rather than the gradual changes often assumed in popular discussions of climate. The Younger Dryas period, which lasted from approximately 12,900 to 11,700 years ago, saw a rapid return to near-glacial conditions in the North Atlantic region. This climate shift would have caused dramatic changes in sea level, precipitation patterns, and agricultural productivity, potentially leading to the collapse of civilizations that had developed during the preceding warm period. The speed of this climate change, which occurred over decades rather than centuries, demonstrates how quickly environmental conditions can change in ways that challenge human adaptation. Ice core data from Greenland and Antarctica reveal that past climate changes have often occurred much more rapidly than previously thought possible. Temperature changes of 10 degrees Celsius or more have occurred within decades, accompanied by dramatic shifts in precipitation patterns and storm intensity. Such rapid climate changes would have been devastating for agricultural societies dependent on stable weather patterns, potentially causing widespread crop failures, famine, and social collapse. The collapse of civilizations during periods of rapid climate change is well documented in the archaeological record, with examples including the end of the Akkadian Empire around 4,200 years ago and the collapse of classic Maya civilization around 1,200 years ago. Ocean current disruptions provide another mechanism through which civilizations could be affected by rapid climate change that operates through complex feedback systems in Earth's climate. The thermohaline circulation system, which includes the Gulf Stream and other major ocean currents, plays a crucial role in regulating global climate by transporting heat and moisture around the planet. Disruptions to this system, caused by changes in ocean salinity or temperature, could trigger rapid climate shifts that affect weather patterns across entire continents. The collapse of the Atlantic meridional overturning circulation, for example, could cause cooling in Europe and changes in precipitation patterns across the Atlantic basin, potentially devastating agricultural societies dependent on stable climate conditions. Computer models of past climate changes suggest that the thermohaline circulation system has shut down or dramatically weakened several times during Earth's history, causing rapid and dramatic climate changes. The Younger Dryas period may have been triggered by such a shutdown, caused by massive influxes of fresh water from melting glaciers disrupting the density differences that drive ocean circulation. Similar disruptions could occur in the future as a result of climate change, demonstrating that the mechanisms capable of causing rapid environmental changes that could destroy civilizations continue to operate today. Genetic studies of human populations provide additional evidence for prehistoric catastrophes that may have affected ancient civilizations through population bottlenecks that reduce genetic diversity and suggest periods when human populations were severely stressed. Population bottlenecks identified through mitochondrial DNA analysis suggest that human populations have experienced periodic dramatic reductions, possibly due to volcanic eruptions, climate changes, or other catastrophic events. The Toba supervolcanic eruption, approximately 74,000 years ago, may have reduced the global human population to as few as 10,000 individuals, demonstrating the potential for geological events to threaten human survival on a species-wide level. These genetic bottlenecks provide evidence that human populations have faced existential threats from natural disasters throughout our species' history. The fact that we survived these events demonstrates human resilience and adaptability, but also suggests that advanced civilizations could have been completely eliminated by similar catastrophic events. The loss of genetic diversity during bottleneck events indicates that entire populations and their accumulated knowledge and cultural achievements could disappear during periods of environmental stress, leaving little trace in either the genetic or archaeological record. The study of mass extinction events in Earth's history reveals that catastrophic environmental changes have repeatedly eliminated large percentages of species and fundamentally altered ecosystems on a global scale. The Permian Triassic extinction event, which occurred approximately 252 million years ago, eliminated over 90% of marine species and 70% of terrestrial species. While such events occur on geological timescales much longer than human civilization, they demonstrate the potential for environmental catastrophes to completely eliminate complex systems that had evolved over millions of years. The mechanisms that cause these mass extinctions, including volcanic activity, climate change, and ocean chemistry changes, continue to operate today and could potentially affect human civilizations under extreme circumstances. The recovery periods following mass extinction events often last millions of years, during which ecosystems slowly rebuild complexity and diversity. This pattern suggests that catastrophic environmental changes can have effects that persist far longer than the initial triggering events. For human civilizations, even temporary environmental disruptions could have permanent consequences if they destroyed accumulated knowledge, technology, and social institutions that took generations to develop. The fragility of human knowledge and cultural achievements means that civilizations could be set back by centuries or millennia by relatively brief periods of environmental catastrophe. Archaeological evidence supports the occurrence of prehistoric catastrophes that affected human civilizations across multiple continents and time periods. The archaeological record shows numerous examples of settlements that were abandoned suddenly, sometimes with evidence of destruction by fire, earthquake, or flooding. The city of Çatalhöyük in Turkey shows evidence of periodic destruction and rebuilding over thousands of years, suggesting that prehistoric peoples regularly faced catastrophic events that required them to rebuild their communities from scratch. Similar patterns of destruction and abandonment are found at archaeological sites worldwide, indicating that catastrophic events have been a recurring feature of human history. The preservation of archaeological sites depends heavily on the specific conditions that existed after their abandonment, which means that catastrophic destruction events may actually improve the chances that sites will be preserved for future discovery. Sites that were abandoned gradually often show signs of scavenging and reuse of materials, while sites destroyed suddenly may be buried quickly under debris or sediment that protects them from further damage. This preservation bias means that we may have better archaeological evidence for civilizations that were destroyed catastrophically than for those that declined gradually, potentially skewing our understanding of how ancient civilizations typically ended. The concept of civilizational collapse has been studied extensively by historians and archaeologists, who have identified common patterns in how complex societies respond to environmental and social stresses. The collapse of the Maya civilization in the 9th century CE, the abandonment of Angkor in the 15th century, and the decline of the Indus Valley civilization around 1800 BCE all demonstrate how advanced societies can disappear relatively quickly when faced with environmental challenges, warfare, or internal social problems. These historical examples provide templates for understanding how a civilization like Atlantis could have collapsed and disappeared from the historical record. The study of civilizational collapse reveals that advanced societies are often more vulnerable to catastrophic failure than simpler ones because of their complexity and interdependence. Complex civilizations depend on elaborate networks of trade, communication, and resource distribution that can be disrupted by relatively small perturbations. When these networks fail, the specialized knowledge and skills that made the civilization advanced can be lost within a single generation. The collapse of the Bronze Age civilizations around 1200 BCE demonstrates how interconnected societies can experience cascading failures that affect entire regions simultaneously. The role of environmental factors in civilizational collapse has become increasingly apparent as scientists have developed better methods for reconstructing past climate and environmental conditions. Many historical collapses coincide with periods of drought, flooding, volcanic eruptions, or other environmental stresses that challenge the agricultural and economic foundations of affected societies. The collapse of the Akkadian Empire around 4,200 years ago coincided with a severe drought that lasted for several centuries, while the decline of the classic Maya civilization occurred during a period of reduced rainfall that made their intensive agricultural system unsustainable. Cultural impact and influence on literature and media represent another crucial dimension of the Atlantis phenomenon that extends far beyond its potential historical reality and demonstrates the enduring power of mythological narratives to shape human consciousness. The story of Atlantis has become one of the most influential myths in Western civilization, inspiring countless works of literature, art, and entertainment, while serving as a powerful symbol for human ambition, technological achievement, and the consequences of hubris. This cultural influence has created a feedback loop in which the myth of Atlantis continues to evolve and adapt to new contexts, while maintaining its essential symbolic power. The literary influence of Atlantis began almost immediately after Plato introduced the concept in his dialogues, with ancient writers recognizing the story's potential as both a historical account and a philosophical allegory. Ancient writers such as Plutarch, Strabo, and Pliny the Elder all referenced Atlantis in their works, though often with skepticism about its literal existence. The story resonated with classical authors because it embodied themes that were central to Greek and Roman thought: the relationship between civilization and nature, the dangers of excessive pride and ambition, and the cyclical nature of human history. These themes would continue to influence Western literature for millennia, providing a framework for exploring fundamental questions about human society and its relationship with the natural world. The transmission of the Atlantis story through classical literature ensured its survival through the medieval period, when many other ancient texts were lost or forgotten. Medieval writers occasionally referenced Atlantis in their works, often interpreting it through Christian theological frameworks that emphasized themes of divine judgment and the consequences of moral corruption. The story's survival during this period demonstrates its fundamental appeal to human imagination and its ability to adapt to different cultural and religious contexts while maintaining its essential narrative structure. During the Renaissance, the rediscovery of Plato's works coincided with the Age of Exploration, when European navigators were discovering new lands and encountering previously unknown civilizations. The story of Atlantis took on new relevance as explorers wondered whether they might discover the lost continent in the vast unexplored oceans that stretched beyond the known world. Francis Bacon's unfinished novel, New Atlantis, published in 1627, reimagined Plato's story as a utopian society that had achieved perfect harmony between scientific knowledge and social organization. Bacon's work established Atlantis as a symbol of human potential and the possibility of creating ideal societies through the application of reason and scientific method. Bacon's interpretation of Atlantis reflected Renaissance optimism about human potential and the power of knowledge to transform society. His vision of New Atlantis as a society dedicated to scientific research and technological advancement influenced subsequent utopian literature and contributed to the development of modern scientific institutions. The Royal Society of London, founded in 1660, was partly inspired by Bacon's vision of organized scientific research, demonstrating how the Atlantis myth could influence real-world developments in human knowledge and social organization. The Romantic movement of the 18th and 19th centuries embraced Atlantis as a symbol of the sublime and the mysterious, transforming it from a primarily philosophical concept into a source of aesthetic and emotional inspiration. Writers like Samuel Taylor Coleridge and Lord Byron incorporated Atlantean themes into their poetry, using the lost civilization as a metaphor for the transience of human achievement and the power of natural forces. The romantic fascination with ruins, lost civilizations, and the sublime power of nature found perfect expression in the Atlantis myth, which combined all these elements in a single compelling narrative that spoke to deep human emotions about loss, beauty, and the passage of time. The Romantic interpretation of Atlantis emphasized emotional and aesthetic responses to the story rather than rational analysis of its historical claims. This approach opened up new possibilities for artistic interpretation and helped establish Atlantis as a legitimate subject for creative expression rather than merely philosophical speculation. The Romantic emphasis on individual imagination and emotional response to natural beauty made Atlantis accessible to broader audiences and contributed to its transformation from an elite philosophical concept into a popular cultural phenomenon. Jules Verne's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, published in 1870, brought Atlantis into the realm of science fiction and adventure literature, creating visual and narrative conventions that continue to influence popular culture today. Verne's description of Captain Nemo discovering the ruins of Atlantis on the ocean floor captured the popular imagination and established many of the visual and narrative conventions that would define Atlantis in popular culture. The image of crystalline domes and classical architecture beneath the waves became a standard representation of the lost civilization, influencing countless subsequent works in literature, film, and other media. Verne's scientific approach to the Atlantis story reflected 19th-century confidence in technological progress and the ability of science to unlock the mysteries of the natural world. His detailed descriptions of underwater exploration technology and marine biology helped make the discovery of Atlantis seem plausible to contemporary readers while entertaining them with exciting adventure narratives. This combination of scientific speculation and adventure storytelling established a template for science fiction that continues to influence the genre today. The late 19th and early 20th centuries saw an explosion of interest in Atlantis, fueled by archaeological discoveries in Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Americas that revealed the sophistication of ancient civilizations previously unknown to European scholars. Writers like Ignatius Donnelly, whose Atlantis, the Antediluvian World was published in 1882, attempted to present Atlantis as historical fact, arguing that it was the source of all human civilization. While Donnelly's theories were not scientifically rigorous, his work influenced popular perceptions of Atlantis and contributed to the development of alternative archaeology movements that continue to attract followers today. Donnelly's approach to Atlantis reflected 19th-century interests in cultural evolution and the search for the origins of human civilization. His attempt to connect Atlantis with archaeological discoveries around the world appealed to readers fascinated by the rapid expansion of knowledge about ancient cultures. Although his methods were flawed and his conclusions unsupported by evidence, Donnelly's work demonstrated the continuing appeal of Atlantis as an explanation for the mysteries of human history and cultural development. Theosophical writers like Helena Blavatsky and Rudolf Steiner incorporated Atlantis into their spiritual and philosophical systems, presenting it as one of several lost civilizations that had achieved high levels of spiritual and technological development. These interpretations of Atlantis emphasized themes of spiritual evolution, ancient wisdom, and the cyclical nature of human development. While these ideas were not accepted by mainstream academia, they influenced popular culture and contributed to the mystical associations that surround Atlantis today. The theosophical interpretation of Atlantis introduced concepts of advanced psychic abilities, crystal technology, and spiritual masters that became standard elements in New Age and occult literature. The theosophical movement's emphasis on hidden knowledge and spiritual evolution appealed to people seeking alternatives to conventional religious and scientific explanations of human history. The incorporation of Atlantis into these belief systems gave the story new relevance for audiences interested in spirituality and personal transformation. This spiritual interpretation of Atlantis has continued to influence popular culture and has contributed to the development of numerous alternative theories about ancient civilizations and their supposed advanced technologies. The 20th century saw Atlantis become a staple of popular entertainment, appearing in comic books, pulp fiction magazines, and eventually film and television. The character of Aquaman, first introduced in comic books in 1941, made Atlantis a familiar concept to generations of readers, presenting it as an underwater kingdom populated by technologically advanced merpeople. This interpretation of Atlantis as a surviving civilization, rather than a lost one, opened up new narrative possibilities and helped establish Atlantis as a setting for adventure stories rather than merely a subject for philosophical speculation. The comic book interpretation of Atlantis emphasized action and adventure while incorporating elements from various cultural traditions about underwater civilizations. This popularization of Atlantis through mass media helped make the story accessible to audiences who might never have encountered Plato's original account, while also introducing new elements that became part of the broader Atlantis mythology. The success of Aquaman and similar characters demonstrated the commercial viability of Atlantis-themed entertainment and encouraged the development of numerous other works featuring the lost civilization. Hollywood's treatment of Atlantis has evolved significantly over the decades, from early adventure serials to big-budget special effects, spectacles that showcase the latest advances in film technology. Films like Atlantis, The Lost Empire presented Atlantis as a technologically advanced civilization powered by mysterious crystal technology, while Aquaman portrayed it as a complex underwater society with its own politics and conflicts. These visual interpretations have shaped public perceptions of what Atlantis might have looked like, often emphasizing crystal technology, underwater cities, and advanced architectural design that combines classical and futuristic elements. The evolution of Atlantis in film reflects broader changes in popular culture and technology, with each generation of filmmakers using the latest special effects techniques to bring their vision of the lost civilization to life. Early films relied on practical effects and painted backdrops to create underwater scenes, while modern productions use computer-generated imagery to create vast underwater cities and realistic marine environments. This technological evolution has allowed filmmakers to create increasingly spectacular and immersive depictions of Atlantis that capture audiences' imaginations while showcasing the possibilities of modern filmmaking. The influence of Atlantis extends beyond entertainment into advertising and marketing, where it has become a symbol of luxury, exclusivity, and technological advancement. Hotels, resorts, and cruise ships named Atlantis promise guests an experience of paradise and luxury, drawing on the mythical associations of the lost civilization with perfection and abundance. Similarly, technology companies have used Atlantis imagery to suggest innovation and cutting-edge development, capitalizing on the civilization's reputation for advanced technology and superior knowledge. This commercial exploitation of Atlantis demonstrates its continued cultural relevance and its power as a symbol of human aspiration and achievement. The use of Atlantis in advertising reflects its associations with perfection, luxury, and exclusivity that make it appealing to marketers seeking to position their products or services as superior to competitors. The mythical status of Atlantis allows advertisers to make implicit claims about quality and sophistication without making specific factual assertions that could be challenged. This symbolic use of Atlantis demonstrates how mythological narratives continue to influence contemporary culture and commerce, even when their historical accuracy is questionable. Video games have provided another medium for exploring Atlantis, allowing players to experience the lost civilization interactively and participate in its discovery or reconstruction. Games ranging from adventure titles to strategy games have featured Atlantis as a setting, often emphasizing themes of exploration, discovery, and the rise and fall of civilizations. These interactive experiences have allowed millions of people to engage with Atlantis mythology in new ways, often combining historical speculation with fantasy elements to create immersive gaming experiences that educate while they entertain. The interactive nature of video games allows players to explore Atlantis in ways that passive media cannot provide, giving them agency in discovering the lost civilization's secrets and participating in its history. This participatory aspect of gaming has created new possibilities for engaging with mythological narratives and has helped introduce Atlantis to younger audiences who might not encounter it through traditional literature or film. The success of Atlantis-themed games demonstrates the continued appeal of exploration and discovery narratives in contemporary culture. The New Age movement has embraced Atlantis as a symbol of spiritual advancement and lost wisdom, often presenting it as a civilization that achieved perfect harmony between technology and spirituality before being destroyed by its own hubris. This interpretation of Atlantis emphasizes themes of environmental harmony, psychic abilities, and the importance of spiritual development alongside technological progress. While these ideas lack scientific support, they reflect contemporary concerns about technology, environmental destruction, and spiritual meaning that resonate with many people seeking alternatives to materialistic worldviews. The New Age interpretation of Atlantis often incorporates elements from various spiritual traditions, creating a syncretic mythology that appeals to people interested in alternative spirituality and personal transformation. This approach to Atlantis emphasizes its relevance to contemporary spiritual seeking and personal development, making the ancient story relevant to modern concerns about finding meaning and purpose in life. The popularity of New Age interpretations of Atlantis demonstrates the continued human need for narratives that address spiritual and existential questions. Academic study of Atlantis as a cultural phenomenon has revealed its function as a mirror for contemporary concerns and aspirations, with each generation reimagining the lost civilization to reflect its own values and preoccupations. Each generation has reimagined Atlantis to reflect its own values, fears, and hopes, whether emphasizing technological progress, environmental harmony, social justice, or spiritual development. This adaptability has ensured Atlantis's continued relevance across different historical periods and cultural contexts, making it a valuable subject for studying how mythological narratives evolve and adapt to changing circumstances. The scholarly study of Atlantis as a cultural phenomenon has revealed patterns in how mythological narratives function in human societies and how they adapt to changing historical circumstances. Researchers have examined how different interpretations of Atlantis reflect the concerns and aspirations of the cultures that produce them, providing insights into the relationship between mythology and social psychology. This academic approach to Atlantis has helped establish it as a legitimate subject for cultural and historical analysis, even when its historical accuracy remains questionable. The influence of Atlantis on archaeological and historical research has been significant, though often problematic, creating both opportunities and challenges for legitimate scholarship. The popularity of Atlantis has inspired legitimate archaeological research in some cases, leading to important discoveries about ancient civilizations and geological processes. However, It has also contributed to the development of pseudo-archaeological theories that lack scientific rigor and can mislead the public about the methods and findings of legitimate research. The challenge for researchers is to separate genuine historical inquiry from speculation and fantasy, while acknowledging the cultural importance of the Atlantis myth and its ability to inspire interest in archaeology and history. The search for Atlantis has contributed to advances in underwater archaeology, marine geology, and other fields by inspiring researchers to develop new techniques and explore previously inaccessible areas. Even when these investigations do not discover Atlantis itself, they often yield important information about ancient civilizations, geological processes, and marine environments. This demonstrates how mythological narratives can serve as catalysts for legitimate scientific research, even when the original inspiration proves to be fictional. Contemporary environmental concerns have given new relevance to the Atlantis story, with many interpreting it as a cautionary tale about the consequences of environmental destruction and unsustainable development. Climate change, rising sea levels, and environmental degradation have made the story of a civilization destroyed by natural catastrophe particularly resonant for modern audiences concerned about humanity's impact on the global environment. This environmental interpretation of Atlantis emphasizes themes of sustainability, respect for natural forces, and the interconnectedness of human societies and their environments. The environmental interpretation of Atlantis reflects contemporary awareness of humanity's capacity to alter global environmental systems and the potential consequences of these changes for human civilization. The story serves as a warning about the dangers of ignoring environmental limits and the importance of developing sustainable relationships with natural systems. This modern reading of Atlantis demonstrates how ancient stories can remain relevant by addressing contemporary concerns and challenges. The digital age has provided new platforms for Atlantis mythology, with online communities dedicated to discussing theories about the lost civilization, sharing artwork and stories, and debating the latest archaeological discoveries. Social media has democratized the discussion of Atlantis, allowing amateur researchers and enthusiasts to share their ideas alongside academic scholars and reach global audiences interested in the topic. This has led to both increased public engagement with archaeological and historical topics and the spread of unsubstantiated theories that can mislead people about the nature of legitimate research. The internet has created new opportunities for people to engage with Atlantis mythology and contribute to its ongoing evolution through blogs, forums, videos, and other digital media. This democratization of content creation has allowed diverse voices to participate in discussions about Atlantis and has helped keep the story relevant for new generations of enthusiasts. However, it has also made it more difficult to distinguish between legitimate research and speculation, creating challenges for educators and researchers trying to promote accurate understanding of archaeological and historical methods. The philosophical meaning and modern interpretations of Atlantis reveal its enduring power as a symbol of human potential and the complexities of civilization, demonstrating how mythological narratives can address fundamental questions about human nature and society. Beyond its possible historical reality, Atlantis functions as a philosophical thought experiment that allows us to explore fundamental questions about human nature, technological progress, social organization, and our relationship with the natural world. The various interpretations of Atlantis throughout history reflect changing perspectives on these eternal human concerns and demonstrate the adaptability of mythological narratives to different cultural contexts. The philosophical significance of Atlantis begins with Plato's original intention in creating the story as a vehicle for exploring questions about ideal governance and the nature of justice. As a philosophical allegory, Atlantis was meant to illustrate the principles of ideal governance and the consequences of moral decay, providing a framework for discussing the characteristics of just societies and the factors that lead to their success or failure. Plato used the contrast between ancient Athens and Atlantis to demonstrate how societies could either embody virtue and justice or succumb to corruption and hubris. This philosophical framework established Atlantis as more than just a historical account. It became a vehicle for exploring the fundamental nature of human societies and the factors that determine their success or failure. The allegorical nature of Plato's Atlantis story allows it to function as a mirror for examining contemporary societies and their strengths and weaknesses. The story provides a framework for discussing questions about power, justice, environmental responsibility, and the proper relationship between individual desires and collective welfare. This philosophical dimension of Atlantis ensures its continued relevance for each generation of readers who can find in it reflections of their own social and political concerns. The concept of the Golden Age, which Atlantis represents in many interpretations, reflects a deep human longing for a time of peace, prosperity, and harmony that transcends specific cultural and historical contexts. This idealization of the past serves multiple psychological and social functions, providing both a critique of present conditions and a vision of what human society might achieve under ideal circumstances. The Golden Age myth appears in cultures worldwide, suggesting that the human desire for a perfect society is universal and timeless, representing fundamental aspirations for security, abundance, and social harmony that motivate human behavior across different contexts. The Golden Age interpretation of Atlantis allows people to imagine alternatives to current social arrangements and to envision possibilities for human improvement and social progress. This utopian dimension of the story provides hope and inspiration for those working towards social change, while also serving as a standard against which contemporary societies can be measured. The persistence of Golden Age narratives across cultures suggests that they fulfill important psychological needs for meaning, purpose, and hope. Modern interpretations of Atlantis often focus on the relationship between technological advancement and moral development, reflecting contemporary concerns about the pace of technological change and its implications for human society. The story suggests that technological sophistication without corresponding ethical development leads inevitably to destruction, a theme that has particular relevance in the contemporary world where rapid technological change raises questions about humanity's ability to manage the power of its own innovations. The Atlantis myth serves as a warning about the dangers of pursuing technological advancement without considering its moral and social implications, emphasizing the need for wisdom and ethical reflection to accompany scientific and technological progress. This technological interpretation of Atlantis resonates with contemporary debates about artificial intelligence, genetic engineering, nuclear weapons, and other powerful technologies that could transform human society in fundamental ways. The story provides a framework for discussing the responsibilities that come with technological power and the importance of developing ethical frameworks for guiding technological development. The cautionary aspect of the Atlantis story reminds us that technological capability alone is insufficient for creating successful and sustainable societies. The environmental interpretation of Atlantis has become increasingly prominent in recent decades, as concerns about climate change and environmental destruction have grown among scientists and the general public. In this reading, Atlantis represents a civilization that failed to live in harmony with natural systems and was consequently destroyed by the forces it had disrupted through its activities. This interpretation emphasizes themes of sustainability, ecological balance, and the importance of respecting natural limits that govern environmental systems. The story becomes a cautionary tale about the consequences of environmental hubris and the need for sustainable development that works within rather than against natural processes. The environmental reading of Atlantis provides a framework for discussing contemporary environmental challenges and the need for more sustainable approaches to economic development and resource use. The story serves as a warning about the potential consequences of ignoring environmental limits and the importance of developing technologies and social systems that work in harmony with natural processes. This interpretation of Atlantis has influenced environmental movements and has helped make environmental concerns more accessible to broader audiences through mythological narrative. The cyclical view of history embodied in the Atlantis myth reflects ancient philosophical concepts about the rise and fall of civilizations that continue to influence historical and political thought. This perspective suggests that human societies inevitably pass through cycles of growth, maturity, decline, and renewal, with each civilization eventually succumbing to internal contradictions or external pressures before giving way to new forms of social organization. The cyclical interpretation of history provides both a framework for understanding historical change and a source of hope that decline and destruction are followed by renewal and rebirth, suggesting that human progress is possible even though individual civilizations may fail. This cyclical view of history can provide comfort and perspective during times of social upheaval and change, suggesting that current difficulties are part of natural historical processes rather than unique catastrophes. The pattern of rise and fall followed by renewal offers hope that human societies can learn from past mistakes and create better forms of social organization. The cyclical interpretation of Atlantis emphasizes the importance of learning from history and the possibility of human improvement over time. Contemporary interpretations of Atlantis often emphasize themes of social justice and equality, reflecting modern concerns about inequality, discrimination, and the need for more inclusive social institutions. Some modern versions present Atlantis as a society that achieved perfect social harmony by eliminating inequality, discrimination, and conflict through just institutions and equitable distribution of resources. These utopian interpretations reflect contemporary concerns about social justice and the possibility of creating more equitable societies that provide opportunities for all members to flourish. The Atlantis myth becomes a vehicle for imagining alternative social arrangements and exploring the conditions necessary for human flourishing in diverse communities. The social justice interpretation of Atlantis provides inspiration for those working toward more equitable societies, while also serving as a critique of existing social arrangements that fail to provide equal opportunities for all members. This reading of the story emphasizes the importance of justice, fairness, and inclusion in creating sustainable and successful societies. The utopian dimension of these interpretations offers hope that social progress is possible and that human societies can overcome divisions based on race, class, gender, and other categories. The spiritual and mystical interpretations of Atlantis reflect humanity's ongoing search for meaning and transcendence in an increasingly secular and materialistic world. These versions of the story often present Atlantis as a civilization that achieved high levels of spiritual development, with inhabitants possessing psychic abilities, advanced healing techniques, and direct communication with higher dimensional beings or spiritual masters. While these interpretations lack scientific support, they address fundamental human needs for spiritual meaning and connection to something greater than ordinary material existence, providing frameworks for understanding human potential and purpose. The spiritual interpretation of Atlantis appeals to people seeking alternatives to purely materialistic worldviews, and provides a framework for exploring questions about consciousness, human potential, and the nature of reality. These interpretations often emphasize the importance of spiritual development alongside material progress, and suggest that true advancement requires attention to both inner and outer dimensions of human experience. The mystical associations of Atlantis make it attractive to people interested in meditation, psychic development, and other spiritual practices. The psychological interpretation of Atlantis focuses on its function as a projection of human desires, fears, and unconscious conflicts, providing insights into the psychological needs that mythological narratives serve in human culture. From this perspective, Atlantis represents the human psyche's attempt to reconcile opposing forces: the desire for progress and the fear of change, the aspiration for perfection and the recognition of human limitations, the hope for transcendence and the reality of mortality. The enduring appeal of Atlantis reflects its ability to embody these fundamental psychological tensions and provide a framework for exploring them through narrative and imagination. The psychological reading of Atlantis suggests that the story serves important functions in helping people process complex emotions and conflicts about human nature and social life. The myth provides a safe space for exploring fears about destruction and loss while also offering hope for renewal and transcendence. This psychological dimension of Atlantis helps explain its continued appeal across different cultures and historical periods, as it addresses universal human concerns about meaning, mortality, and the possibility of achieving ideal conditions. Educational interpretations of Atlantis emphasize its value as a tool for teaching critical thinking, historical analysis, and scientific methodology to students at various levels. The story provides an excellent case study for examining how myths develop, how historical claims should be evaluated, and how cultural beliefs influence the interpretation of evidence. Teachers use Atlantis to help students understand the difference between historical fact and speculation, the importance of evidence-based reasoning, and the cultural functions of mythology in human societies. This educational approach to Atlantis helps students develop skills in critical analysis while engaging with an inherently interesting and culturally significant topic. The educational use of Atlantis demonstrates how mythological narratives can serve pedagogical purposes even when their literal truth is questionable. The story provides a framework for discussing research methods, the nature of evidence, and the importance of distinguishing between different types of claims about the past. This educational application of Atlantis helps students develop intellectual skills that are valuable across many different academic disciplines and areas of life. The feminist interpretation of Atlantis has emerged in recent decades, with some scholars and writers reimagining the lost civilization as a matriarchal society that valued cooperation, nurturing, and ecological harmony over competition, domination, and exploitation. These interpretations often present the destruction of Atlantis as the result of a shift toward patriarchal values and the abandonment of feminine wisdom and approaches to social organization. While historically speculative, these interpretations reflect contemporary discussions about gender roles and the need for more balanced approaches to social organization that incorporate both masculine and feminine principles. The feminist reading of Atlantis provides a framework for critiquing patriarchal social structures and imagining alternatives based on different values and principles. This interpretation emphasizes the importance of cooperation, sustainability, and care for others as foundations for successful societies. The feminist approach to Atlantis demonstrates how mythological narratives can be reinterpreted to support contemporary social movements and political goals. Post-colonial interpretations of Atlantis examine how the myth has been used to support or challenge dominant cultural narratives about civilization, progress, and cultural superiority. Some scholars argue that the Atlantis story has been appropriated by Western cultures to suggest that advanced civilization originated in Europe or the Mediterranean, minimizing the achievements of non-Western societies and supporting narratives of Western cultural superiority. Alternative interpretations place Atlantis in Africa, the Americas, or Asia, challenging Eurocentric assumptions about the origins of civilization and technological development while highlighting the contributions of diverse cultures to human progress. The post-colonial reading of Atlantis reveals how mythological narratives can be used to support or challenge power structures and cultural hierarchies. This interpretation emphasizes the importance of recognizing diverse cultural contributions to human development and questioning assumptions about cultural superiority that have been used to justify colonialism and other forms of domination. The post-colonial approach to Atlantis demonstrates the political dimensions of mythological interpretation and the ways in which stories about the past can influence contemporary social relations. The technological interpretation of Atlantis focuses on its representation of humanity's relationship with technology and innovation, reflecting contemporary concerns about the pace of technological change and its implications for human society. Different versions of the story present technology as either the source of Atlantis's greatness or the cause of its destruction, reflecting ambivalent attitudes toward technological progress that characterize modern industrial societies. Contemporary interpretations often emphasize the importance of developing technology in harmony with human values and environmental constraints, using Atlantis as a symbol of both technological potential and the need for responsible innovation that considers long-term consequences. This technological reading of Atlantis provides a framework for discussing the ethical dimensions of technological development and the importance of considering the social and environmental impacts of new technologies. The story serves as both inspiration for technological advancement and a warning about the potential dangers of uncontrolled technological development. The technological interpretation of Atlantis emphasizes the need for wisdom and ethical reflection to guide technological progress. Philosophical discussions of Atlantis often center on questions of historical truth and the nature of knowledge, raising fundamental epistemological questions about how we determine what is true about the past. The lack of definitive evidence for Atlantis raises fundamental questions about how we determine historical truth, the relationship between myth and history, and the role of speculation in human understanding of the past. These discussions illuminate broader philosophical issues about the nature of reality, the limits of human knowledge, and the ways in which cultural beliefs shape our interpretation of evidence and influence our understanding of the world. The epistemological questions raised by Atlantis research have implications beyond archaeology and history, touching on fundamental issues about the nature of knowledge and truth that concern philosophers, scientists, and other scholars. The story provides a case study for examining how knowledge claims are evaluated and how cultural factors influence the interpretation of evidence. This philosophical dimension of Atlantis makes it valuable for teaching critical thinking and epistemological awareness. The therapeutic interpretation of Atlantis focuses on its psychological and emotional functions for individuals and communities, recognizing its potential value for personal development and healing. The story provides a framework for processing feelings of loss, nostalgia, and hope,